2006 at the Atlanta History Center. This is the World War II Library of Congress Veterans History Project. We have with us today Mr. William Clary, who's a native of Central Georgia, who saw action in the Pacific during World War II and was in Japan after the war. He's going to talk to us about what it was like growing up in Atlanta, what it was like going to school during the first part of the war and joining up, and then what he did during the time and afterwards. And Bill, we certainly appreciate you being here more than you'll ever know, and turn it over to you. It's all yours for the next hour.
Thank you very much. I grew up in Meadersville, Georgia as a young boy. I lived on a large farm with my grandfather. My mother, my brother, and my aunt were basically close to the same age, so we had a great time in the country during a time when we had help there on the farm, and things had been doing well, but as the Depression came on, the life got tougher and tougher, you might say, but the attitude, it's interesting how people really were and what they did anyway. As I got older, I lived in Washington, Georgia, and we had had the life in Meadersville. My mother had grand ideas. We had the Queen Mary Land, picture of the Queen Mary Land on the dresser. We talked about Charles Lindbergh, Admiral Byrd, people like that. Howard Hughes, anybody that did great things were our people, and we learned all about them, and it was a lot of interesting times. I did the average thing in Washington. I tried to play football. I had a great time in high school, but everybody was joining the military. The guys were coming back. Some of them were pilots, some of them were just people, some of them were just plain soldiers, but for me, I wanted to go. So I came to Atlanta with my group. I was 16 years old and took the Navy flying school test. They gave me the test, and when it was over, they never said anything, but the guy came over and says, "You're going to be a high school graduate, you come back." So I left, and when I got 17, I decided I would check around, so I went in the post office in Macon, Georgia, and checked about joining the Navy and maybe going down to Jacksonville. He said, "That's fine." They had a boot camp down there, and I could get. So my folks signed the papers, and I left. I went to Jacksonville boot camp. The boot camp, after we'd been there 3 or 4 weeks, they called the boot camp off. And I thought, well, maybe I'll be going to some kind of flying school, or maybe I'll learn to be a gunner or mechanic or something. Anyway, it didn't quite turn out that way. I was sent to a small engineering school in Gulfport, Mississippi. We were there 8 weeks. It was really tough. We really got in shape, and I learned a little bit about getting along on my own. We on to California, no leave home, on to California, and at Treasure Island a few days, and on to Pearl Harbor on a big ship. And never will forget, we got to Pearl Harbor, went up a place called Ia. Everybody was on the front porch. They said, "You'll be sorry." So the next load came in. I said, "You'll be sorry," right with the others. That we were there about 2 days, and it was still a question about what we were going to do. Were we going to be on a carrier? We didn't know. So we went down to a little canteen one evening, say 3 days after we got there. By then I was down at Nimitz Bowl. We heard a friend, I was 18 that day, we heard a friend, we'd gone to an LCI, and we knew then what was going to happen to us. The next day, I was transferred to the LST 704. It was at the North Tiddox. Tokyo Rose was talking. And I got there, I'd been on a long trip, I didn't know. I went on and they said, "Well, there's a boot aboard." So I started doing jobs you don't want to do. The ship left, we went out one day, the ship left, and we went out to sea with 6 small LSTs, no escort. We wound up in Manus, New Guinea. And by then, we pretty well knew a lot about it. They were teaching me how to operate my job, how to get along on the ship. But it was still like I was a boot. The boot was still there. And we loaded at Manus. And this was a beginning of something that turned very real. We were owned actually LSTs slide up on the beach, and several others were very close. There was one very near us, and that evening we were putting these soldiers on that had all been in combat. They all had notches in their barrel. They were very strong, tough guys. And so for some reason, I don't ever remember them doing this again, but they actually gave us some beer. So a guy asked me, he said, give me one of the beers. By then, I was getting pretty comfortable. I said, sorry, Mac. He took a swing at me, and before I knew it, it was like a baseball fight. I was in the bottom, but I remember one thing about it so special. One guy jumped in to help me, and before you know it, the whistles were blowing, and everything was wrong, and it was over. So I thought immediately I'd be in trouble, I'd be in the brig, so I went back, but we left, we were loaded, nothing was said, and I still thought, wow, what is this? One other thing I forgot I do want to say. Down at Macon, when they give you the oath, I thought, wow, what have I said? And this turned out to be the big line maybe in my life. We sailed every day on a steaming routine, and by then we were working real hard. They taught me to shoot to 20 millimeter. That day they were laughing. When the plane came over, it was a plane just like George Bush flew. They were laughing I was going to shoot. I knew then that maybe I was one of them. I had really gotten into this thing. So by then, I was already thinking about this oath deal. Could I do it? That was the big question. Could I do it? After every day, the convoy was bigger. Every day. More ships, more ships. So then they talked about where we might go. Nobody really told me anything. I was the lowest grade you can be. But I was working every day. Anyway, it finally was told we were going to strike LST, that General MacArthur was going to return. So we were going to do the job. The first morning, a few planes came over. We had gotten in Lady Gulf, and they were flying high, and everybody was shooting. And by then, it was all decided then. So we had quite a few stray planes and small attacks came in, and one or two ships got some kind of hits, but to see the battle fleet shoot is unreal. They shelled the beach for hours. Finally, by then I had already found out about the war. Two planes came over. One rolled out. It came right down our gun barrel. I said, ready. Ready. I was a trunnion operator on a 20 millimeter. I yelled, ready, ready, ready. I was screaming by now. When the plane pulled out, I was sitting on the floor. My feet were trembling. Everything was wrong. Anyway, the plane shot by, and I said, why did you shoot? The guy said, I didn't get ordered to shoot. So from then on, I think he would shoot. Anyway, we got by that one. You could see the pilot sitting clearly in the cockpit when he shot by. So after about 11 o'clock, they decided, well, it wasn't going to be that tough. So we started to the shore. And if you ever thought about your life when you're sliding on that beach, you'll think about it then. It's a question of whether they or you will stay. So we got there, and it all turns into hard work. Soldiers are very anxious to get off. When you first land in a big landing like that, no tractors are on the beach, and nobody to push up a little dirt and help with getting things off. They have a few bridges and things they can put in. Anyway, we were working with all that, and we got what they call an army duck hung in the door. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, they said, "Man your battle station." We ran out, and the shells came in. We wound up with 9 big holes in the ship. Nearly a third of our crew was down. The ship was on fire. We dealt with this in many ways, as even the fire hoses had holes in them. One of my friends had gotten killed in the forward gun turret. The day went on. We finally got the ship off the beach. We were trying to get the ship off the beach. The bosun sent me, she told me, said, "You go down and dog the hatches." So I met another guy down on an LST, the sleeping quarters on each side of the tank deck. I met a guy there, and he went one way and I went the other. I could still hear the doors are clicking. As we dogged the hatches, we came out. I came up right at the end near the mess hall in the rear of the ship. And they were trying to get a soldier that had been badly wounded up, and they had already given him one of his arrests. And he was, they were trying to get him up. Well, actually, I helped him, and we put him on the table at the mess hall. He wanted to go home. He wanted to see his baby. I can tell you what they all say. They want to go home. Anyway, I don't know whatever happened to him. And but we stayed there. And to me, this is the military in its purest form. We've been off the beach. We made smoke, fought the fire. People did wild things. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the word came they needed the equipment. And we went back. Boy, I haven't forgot this. They sent me forward. I manned a 20 up front, up forward. And I remember sliding back on the beach again, and the soldiers had a row of 90 millimeters set up. They fired them just as we slid in. It was really something. After that, we got unloaded. We got the soldiers off, and we pulled back and waited, and we shot at the planes that came by. I remember 2 or 3 instances that were really interesting. We went to a repair ship and got the ship, some work done on the ship, and where it had been hit. The planes came in, the Japanese flew low and almost between the ships, all down the beach. Anyway, these 3 bombers came down the beach, and just as they turned, it was about dusk that evening, and one of them turned and it was coming straight at us, and it was very low. I ran over, and they had secured the 20s because they didn't shoot them at night on account of the tracers. So I dove over behind the officer's country, and I saw my friends, the people that the guy that helped me in the fight jumped and got on the 40. He popped that plane and shot it down that evening. It was absolutely the wildest moment I think I've ever seen. We all started yelling, and everybody was screaming, "A football game is nothing." And all of a sudden, a shell hit the boat diving right above my head, and the shrapnel flew again like it did when the shells came in. Boy, did that shut us up. We had a few more to get some shrapnel that evening. So another instance about what can happen in the war. Another evening, the Val is a small bomber, dive bomber. They used them at Pearl Harbor. They were in the original group, like Zeros. Some came down the beach, and one of them turned and was coming again towards us. We were very close to the beach. And the guy was flying real low, and I'll never know why, but anyway, everybody was shooting at him. And all of a sudden, a shell undoubtedly hit the engine, and the prop jumped off, and it just zip, zip, zipped in the water. And the coast plane popped in the water, and that was the end of that. And you might not think so, but after a raid like this, it's almost total silence. I stand around looking, saying, well, you know, nobody, you through talking most of the time. Bragging's out. Anyway, all of a sudden somebody hollered, there's a Jap in the water. Everybody ran to the deck, real excited, Jap in the water. And so we let down our corpsman. We didn't have a doctor. We just had a corpsman. And he'd been busy, I can tell you, yes. He had 40 patients at one time. Anyway, we let the corpsman and a couple of guys in the boat. I've talked to one of the guys in the boat since, and they went over and came back. By then they had moved the body over. But by the time we got there, we realized it wasn't quite like we thought. Another one of those moments. He was perfect. He was a Navy pilot. We don't know what happened to him. He was already in the war, but he was dead, and that's for sure. He looked like he was about 25, 24. So again, the silence, the other side of the wall came back real strong, I can tell you that. And we stayed at Leyte 13 days, waiting to get out of there. We got our ship put back together enough to go. We sailed out of there. It was quite a feeling when we pulled out. The war had, by then the soldiers had moved on, and basically things had quieted down. I remember going by a cruiser and they all whistled. We thought, well, we made it. Anyway, we went down to Alandria, New Guinea. We immediately, these guys jumped on the ship with torches and everything else and got us ready to go. We didn't stay at Alandria very long. Some new people came aboard for the ones that got hurt, and we sailed down to a place called Finch Haven, New Guinea, and set up on the beach down there. And these guys came out. They were the first ones that MacArthur had in the war over there, one of the first battles. Their blankets were dirty. They'd been out a long time. We took them to Lingayen Gulf. We got up there. Actually, the assault first wave had gone in when we went in, but they had some trouble with the big guns in the mountains, and at night we were unloading. The heaviest ships were shooting over our head. The shells were coming over like boxcars, and we had a very uneasy night. They'd had a lot of trouble with suicide boats up there, and everybody was out looking. Some of them got excited with their guns and stuff like that. And anyway, we did get unloaded. We didn't stay there that long, but we were right in the midst of the battle, and then we left. We went back down to Manus. By then, I'd gotten promoted to fireman first class after Leyte, and then they promoted me to petty officer third class, which was cool. And the orders came down while another guy, you never know, me and P.G. McCart, he was the saltiest human being I had ever seen. He was afraid of nothing. He was so wild when things went wrong. But the officers liked him. He was hard to deal with, but boy, when things got tough, he was man. Anyway, he was a first class motor mech. He and I were shipped back to the States. And we came back to Pearl Harbor on the LST 610. It had been hit by a suicide boat. The one shaft was blown out. They had it packed with blankets and mattresses and timbers and things. And they began to have engine trouble. We were loaded with Marines and guys that had been over there really too long. And it was really a tough bunch there, but PG was watching out for me. They couldn't understand why I was on the ship. I was just 18, and but I'd been there too. Anyway, the engine gave a lot of trouble at Christmas Island, so we stopped at Tarawa, and a tug pulled us to Pearl Harbor. PG and I got off. They sent me on. He and I on to the States on a liner. We ran the food division on the ship. I'll never forget it. A lot of the guys had their faces tore up, and we served ice cream and stuff like that. Went on a short 2-week leave, came back, and everybody was shocked. They signed me to the DD 589, a sleek Fletcher class destroyer. the PG'd come back. I saw that he'd had a lot of trouble getting along in real life, but he said everybody understood. That's the last time I ever saw him. He was cool. He knew how to wear his uniform. I wanted to be like that then. Anyway, we left Seattle. They sent me up to Seattle. I got on the destroyer, and it was different. They thought they'd really been in a war. I thought I'd been in the real close-up war, and I knew I had. And although they had done some big shooting from a distance, I had seen some real close-up. But anyway, I got along just fine with them. We wound up in Alaska, and we'd been up there going out shooting every day, and we went out on we actually went out on a torpedo range near the Warrior and shoot at submarines and all with torpedoes. You ought to see them shoot a torpedo. Anyway, we were there, and a guy came in with a little radio and said the war was going to be over. We were getting ready to go to Japan. We knew what we were going to do. And it was just like that. It was over. Adak, Alaska. The war was over. We sailed right out and went to Omanada, Japan. And this is where they gave me this gun right out of a Japanese soldier's hands. All the Japanese field pieces had a fleur-de-lis right on that piece. All the military pieces had this. When a soldier fell, it was like a petal from a flower falling. And they thought they had a lot of soldiers to expend, and they did. Anyway, Admiral Hoseley was so mad with them. Whoa, excuse me. Can we cut it off a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Found out the war was over.
Yeah, the war was over.
Giving you
and they had given me the gun. We went.
Now that was in, when did you arrive in Japan?
I'm in Japan about 3 or 4 days after the war was over.
After the war was over.
Yeah, 3 or 4 days. Anyway, we stopped in Omanada, and then we opened the town of Hokkaido. It's a very big town. And what was so interesting to me, I think I have this right, I'm not absolutely positive, but I think I do. I remember I was just an enlisted guy. The captain went down and they changed the money at the bank, and it was business as usual. They'd had a tough time. They'd been bombed a lot. There was 3 or 4 ships sunk right out there. We could see the smokestacks. Some of them sat up on the beach. They all had victory gardens that were like 2 feet wide. They had a tough time, but strangely enough, the war was really over. We didn't have a single incident of any problems. We left there and we docked down near the Missouri. We had got to Tokyo. They, again, to my surprise, I got transferred again. The ship was coming home for the States. They shipped me over to a big repair ship. Boy, they gave liberty, but they went to Hiroshima. And I was with a bunch of young fools back from the States, and not for me. I was not going to Hiroshima. I didn't know. It might be germs there. It might be anything. I didn't go. I stayed on the ship. The next morning they sailed, and we wound up. We went down to Okinawa, saw the caves, a lot about it. We went to Tsingtao, China. Saw them ship the soldiers back and civilians back from China. Everybody was there. Pretty tough time there. It's a big town. And
these were U.S. prisoners or?
they were Japanese.
Japanese.
Yeah, prisoners. Yeah, they were shipping them back.
Okay.
And the war was over, though. I don't care whether you call them prisoners or not. The war was over. Okay. They were officers and men, and we were there, and they told us to be very careful. It was 5 navies in there, and I stayed there like a month. Then we started home on this big repair ship. It took 30 days. We went through the canal zone and on to Norfolk NOB. I got out of the Navy. I was a water attendant, 2nd class. My dream had always been to go to the University of Georgia. And all of a sudden, my day had come. I thought I could do it. So I came home. I spent 2 nights in the YMCA down on Lucky Street. My mother had a small apartment. She said, well, why don't you wait? I said, no. So I went over there, and they accepted me. So I went to summer school that summer, and I'd gone to 11th grade high school. I'd been out of high school 3 years. It almost was too quick, and real scary. I'm telling you that the thought of leaving was impossible. But by then, my friends in high school were seniors. The girls were already dating lieutenant commanders, and they all seemed to have money. Anyway, it came to me that I realized what I had come for, to graduate. And my brother and I lived in room 215 at Village Hall. We stayed there. We went to school completely. That was it. We went to school to get around. And at the end, I received a commission in the Army and a degree from the University of Georgia. I got out, got a job at General Motors. When the Army changed, I transferred to the Air Force. When the career broke out, they called me in. By then, when I left, I became a first lieutenant. I went down to Rainey Air Force Base, Puerto Rico. And I was stationed in a big strategic air command base there. It was a different life now. This is fun in the officers club with a lot of older officers and a lot of fun. We had a great time, and to my ever surprise, the colonel sent me to the staff school over at Air University. I remember the military guys, I want to say something about military officers. They don't get to be majors and colonels unless they can do it. They will do whatever it takes to complete the mission. I know that. I'd seen them do it. And when I got off the plane, the colonel said, do good or don't come back. I'll never forget that. That was, I thought, well, he picked me. He thinks I can do it. So I did. Anyway, I got out 21 months at Ramey, and I've been a manufacturer's agent in the furniture business since. Thank you.
Bill, where were you on Pearl Harbor Day?
I was on the farm.
On the farm?
And I remember vividly them shooting, the Navy, the British, all the big airstrikes and stuff like that. We'd heard, on the radio. We had a radio in the country. This was about 1939.
When the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941, you were 17 years old?
No, I was 15 years old.
You 15?
Yeah, 15.
Okay.
And I went in the Navy, nearly 15.
Okay.
And I went in when I was 17 in 44.
Okay. What was your reaction to Pearl Harbor?
Well, I was just a young kid, and I don't know, the war, there'd been so much talk about the war, and by then my uncles had already been in a year, the original ones that got drafted.
Yeah.
And in my family, everybody went. I was the last one. All the uncles, everybody went. And they won, later one uncle went to New Guinea, Australia, the other one fought all the way across Germany, said he was there right after General Patton got killed. They were all over there. But my reaction was, I guess to me it was sort of, in a way, they came home with those fancy uniforms on, everybody was doing it. I tried to go to flying school. I never lost my desire to want to see what it was like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were in the Pacific and you first got attacked by the strafing and the bombers and the kamikaze pilots and everything, What was your initial reaction? Was it,
Well, I can tell you that. The reaction is they had been training you constantly. We trained 24 hours a day, and they were getting you ready for it. And I told you this first plane that came in so close, I had chill bumps, and you can't imagine. My feet were trembling, everything was trembling, but everybody was there, and it is obvious then the answer about the oath had been answered. It was us or them.
yeah,
There wasn't any question about what to do.
this is the
Shoot.
one where the gunner didn't,
Well, he didn't shoot
He
that
didn't
first
shoot.
day. He didn't shoot. He didn't shoot, and I was screaming, shoot, 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 and they had a little piece of metal that you could get behind. It was about 8 or 10 inches wide and maybe 2 feet long. I was down behind that, and he was just there. And you can imagine the sky was absolutely covered with shells. When you have a big shooting like that, a lot of shrapnel falls back down.
yeah,
Pieces of it fall back down. And the day when we got hit, it's bam, the concussion knocked the wax right out of your ears. I'll never know why I didn't get it. Everybody around me got hit. And
are you aware of the overall operation in the theater, or
Yeah.
you just know what's happening around you immediately?
I was an enlisted man working on the ship. If I had to say in a sentence what I do during the war, I did what I was told. They had no time for people that couldn't do the job. They would not put up with it.
Yeah,
And when they said go, when they rang general quarters, I ran to the gun. Oh, they said do this, do that. I did it.
it was just kind of a knee-jerk reaction.
No, I did as they told me to do. They said do it, I did it. Yes, sir, absolutely. You can imagine these men at a time like that when a ship has been hit, it's on fire, they cannot put up with people that won't do their job.
No.
They don't mean somebody fretting about it or frightened out of their shoes. They mean for you to grab it and go. That's all it is to it.
And that's,
They won't have it. They won't put up with it. If you didn't, you got slapped out of the way.
were there people who couldn't stand up to the task?
Well, I must say, our guys were all just a bunch of kids, but damn if they didn't do it.
No.
I remember the guy, Scavo across from me, he'd been hit, and this guy I knew was over there trying to put a tourniquet on his arm.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, and a lot of them just had a piece of shrapnel in them, and the blood was running out. Some of them had much more, much more. Yeah, much more. Yeah, color coding. And the combat is something that once you get involved in it, there's don't hold it back.
no,
No, you have to decide. I think the landing on the LST, that sliding up on the beach and saying, "We come to move you back." It's a matter of who's going to be moved back, us or them. I think there's something to that a lot of other people have never witnessed. It's a line of fear. I remember that day, the second time we slid in that morning, I can remember I had chill bumps so big. But by then I was almost up there by myself. They said, you handle it. It's like if it took 2 people to run the gun, you handle it, you do it. The night guy shot down the plane, he was up there by himself. And he got the gun going, and he popped the plane. He saw it hit it, and he started shooting, and the thing exploded. And he knew he had to do it. There was no question. He had to do it.
Did you all take any Japanese prisoners on board?
No.
No.
We were the exit lady. The huge naval battle happened that evening. We could hear them on the radio. And the stories that came back. Incidentally, I left out this part of it. This is the big one. We knew what General MacArthur was. We knew what we'd come to do.
He was on the Boise.
General MacArthur was right there with us. He's right down the beach. And here he is going in. General MacArthur went on the beach just a few ships down from me. He was on a big ship, and he came in on a LCVP, a smaller ship, a boat. And this is the picture of him actually going in. Yeah. They told he was. the average guy thought MacArthur wasn't afraid of anything. Nothing.
Yeah.
And the story went down the beach. This is the story that came out. We were near a place called Tacloban. And General MacArthur jumped out and got on the beach and he got in this Jeep. And there was an airstrip they were pushing the Japanese back from. And these are stories that I can't authenticate, but these are stories we heard. He went down there and the bullets were flying and all, and Major Bong landed. Bong was a P-38 air ace, the best we had. And when he landed, MacArthur gave him a medal and said, "I need you now." He went back up and shot down 2 more that evening.
Goodness gracious.
Another story we heard, this Navy pilot got in a jam. He gave out of gas, and this is common. They, in a big deal like the big sea battle that they had there at Lady, this guy gave out of gas, and he landed at the airfield, and they said there wasn't any gas, real rough holes everywhere. And he jumped out, and this is what they said. They came back to us, that the Marine major said, "You're not getting the gas." And he said, the guy pulled out his .45 and he said, "Put the gas in. Put the gas in the plane, you left." That's the story they tell. Anyway, it was just thrilling stories about things that happened, and people like this P.G. McCart character. He was out there when the ship was on fire. P.G. was running out there, and every time they turned on the fire hoses had holes in them from the shrapnel, and they wasn't getting anywhere. And we'd always had trouble. He was in what they call a repair party. They could never get these hand depellers. Hand depellers were little pumps that ran on motors like lawnmowers. Today on them much faster. Anyway, they've never been able to get the things working. They got them working that day.
You said the last time you saw PG was...
The morning I got transferred to the DD-589, he'd been home, and I could tell that he'd pulled a few while I was at home that the family didn't understand. I really wonder about guys like PG, if he was ever going to be able to go back and be just a regular guy in town.
You never caught up with him after the war?
Never heard of any of them. PG was the heart and soul of the battle.
No.
He was afraid of nothing.
Do you keep up with some of the people that were on the ship with you?
No, nobody. I got transferred. I got away from all of them. I went to Georgia. I didn't keep up. The destroyer was a different life. A destroyer, incidentally, I'll show you something. Destroyer's a cool machine, very dangerous. I worked in the forward fire room. You either do your job or you could get hurt very badly. And I'll show you what we did. This is us. This was off of Adak, Alaska. This big cruiser came by, and we fueled from that cruiser. See how we threw the lines open?
Yeah.
That's me standing right over there where the line goes into the ship. We fueled that day running at about 10 knots at 12.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, and what you do, you throw the rope, and the ropes get bigger, and the pipe comes over. And guys are sounding the tanks around all over the ship. And we shot 5-inch 38s. I worked on a 5-inch 38 room. That was what they call a hot casement. When a 5-inch 38 recoils, the shell casing comes out, and you got it out of there. And I watched them shoot torpedoes, all these things. So I felt that I had a good idea of what the Navy does. I really did. Like
You
I say.
alluded to the fact that the mood of the country was everybody was uniform during this period of time.
It's a strange thing. I never said I shouldn't have gone. then, after not even coming home, you know, I was, you know, everybody thought they'd be on a carrier and eating ice cream, but it didn't work out that way. And I never really felt that way. It was their war and our war, we were in it, and I guess differently. Now, I got to recall, as you know, in Korea, and I was not that close to the war. It was a totally different thing. Being a first lieutenant, I was flying with the major and sitting up in the plane with him, and in the officers club at night, and over at San Juan, and then the trip to the staff school was really cool, and I got captain after that. But I wanted to get out. I enjoyed the military, but I didn't see me being in there in peacetime. No. And I wanted to try to make money. I guess that's what I wanted to do, and I'd already met a guy, incidentally, about the military. Young guys that come out of college that maybe didn't have everything in college. You can go in the Air Force as a young lieutenant, and you pick up a lot. It was a great life for me. I met a lot of guys. I heard a lot of stories, a lot of charming people, and of course, in my case, going to the staff school didn't hurt. And I don't know. I met a guy, though. I'll say this in the end. A guy came in the officers club, and he was bragging about what the family did. They were just too good for words. So I was up in Mobile at Brooklyn Air Force Base, and Olin's father picked him up, and me too. He was everything he said that Olin had said. He had on a fine suit, a very fine suit, big car. You could tell he was successful. I went up to Birmingham with him. They lived in one of the finest neighborhoods. We went to the Birmingham Country Club for lunch. I thought, wow, this furniture business is really something. So I did not go back to my job in Atlanta. I tried to be a manufacturer's agent. I finally worked it out, but it didn't come easy and it didn't come quick. But a lot of my friends were doing better than I was, but strange enough, I finally learned how to do it. And when it worked, it really worked. It turned out to be a great thing for me. My son is in the business today.
Did you feel differently about the mood of the country in Korea? Do you think it was different by then than it was?
It was definitely different, but yes, the mood of the country was different. But you realize after World War II was over, a lot of people, the mood was changing then.
Yeah.
Luckily, it was thousands of veterans on the street looking for a job.
Yeah.
And I say this about GI Bill too. They stood by us. If the school would let you stay, even if you wasn't making good grades and nothing else, if you were tough enough to stay and could live on $125 a month, they'd let you stay until you worked it out. You know, like in my case, when I first got there, I immediately got in trouble with Spanish. And it was real scary. I thought they were going to ask me to leave. Real scary. Now, it was a great learning, probably one of the biggest learning lessons of my life. I knew I wanted to stay. So, I look back at my government. They stood by me.
Now, your child married another veteran's child. Is that correct?
What's that?
You have a child that's married to another World War II veteran of the Pacific
Yes.
child?
Son, yes. He went to Lady too. Bob Boswell went to Lady too.
And he survived 90 days of kamikaze attacks at Okinawa or something like that, as I recall.
Incidentally, my LST went on to Okinawa after I got off. And I was getting ready to go to Japan.
Do you and your in-law colleague ever discuss the war?
We have some, but not much anymore. We have sometimes. Bob was on a big ship. He was an officer. He's a little older than I am. He'd been to college before the war. And he was already an officer. And I was a fireman second when I went over there. which is as low as you can be.
Why do you think that a lot of World War II veterans don't talk that much about
Well-
the tenure of the service? Was it?
Well, it's really, we didn't talk about it much for a long time either. But now, I think, for me, you have to put the ball behind you. It wasn't my decision other than to go and help. And some of them have some grievances, but I don't. I felt nobody took advantage of me. Again, like the colonel sending me to school, that was pretty cool to get selected. On the ship, and on the LST, I got promoted after every battle. I did what they told me to do. I didn't feel important. I was just part of it. I didn't run it. I was there with them. And I think too, television has changed everything. Everybody in the United States thinks now they can run the United States, they can be president. But it's not true. Everybody can't run the United States. Everybody can't be president. Everybody isn't that smart. And they've seen now everything is so open, and historically every mistake that any of our leaders ever make, we have I think sometimes I think that the talk shows want to show more what they didn't do than what they did do. And we live in a different world now. When Pearl Harbor happened, we had a small radio. That was it. And I was living in the country. It was more sitting on the porch in the evening hoping somebody would come as a kid. Yeah. And the wonder of it all, like in my case, we had the picture of the ship. We had the thoughts about Charles Lindbergh and all these great people, Admiral Bud and all, and wow, they've been all these places. My mother used to say, well, you'll get to go too someday and talk. And boy, I did. I still like to travel. I've traveled a lot after I got out, yeah.
I had a veteran tell me 2 days ago that had we had today's press in World War II, we would have lost the war.
I don't think so. I really don't disagree. One of the most disgraceful things that I like the president. One of the most disgraceful things that I can remember is back during World War II when the Germans burned the books, when Hitler burned the books. Well, now they talk about the press. My advice to our leaders today about the press, the press is the press, and they're going to write what they want to. And the president and his cabinet ought to run the country. And maybe he can be like Yogi Berra. He can take another road. He can decide if they just expose something, there's always some smart guy to come up with something else to help work it out. In the end, maybe it may not be too bad. But there's some of these things they're telling. It's strange that I would be sitting there knowing how I feel about the war and how I am behind trying to straighten out the problems. But still, you never know. And I'm not mad with the press. Press is the press.
This video is going to be given to you, and you're going to be able to give it to your children and grandchildren. Anything you'd like to say to them in particular about feelings you have about your experience in World War II, what you'd like for them to remember about you and what you did there?
I just tell them that I've been around quite a bit, and believe in their country, and that success in life is go to good schools, learn all you can. But in the end, every life is like stair steps. Each step you get on opens the way for the next one. And someday you'll be on the landing.
Well, on behalf of myself and my generation, I want to express my sincere appreciation to you and your generation for making it possible for me to go to kindergarten and grammar school while you were over in the Pacific fighting the war for us. And We'll be forever in your debt. Thank you so very much for being with us today.
Well, I hope
Go ahead. We're
It's
reminiscing a little more.
This is a little bit about what you remember about things that happened and the realities of the war. We had left Alandria, New Guinea, and we had gotten some guys on the ship that had been hurt or moved around. Some of them had come from the hospital down at Guadalcanal. This guy, we always laughed and said was kind of crazy. Every evening we'd be sitting out there with the shift changes. You work shift on a ship, it runs 24 hours a day. Anyway, we were sitting out there, and this is a little incident I really remember. We were sitting there, and everybody was talking these funny stories. We'll start talking a little bit, and then they talked about the guys that got hit, and some of the boys got real blue about it. And this guy jumped up, and he said, well, if he hadn't got his head blown off, head up, he wouldn't have got it blown off. Something silly like that. And I thought, whoa, what is this guy saying? All of a sudden, he was playing with this hand grenade. And all of a sudden, he pulled the pin out and was holding it, and he just rolled it across the floor. And I will never forget that. Of all the things that kind of pinched me when I think about how stupid it would have been to get hit with a hand grenade. Actually, he had somehow got the hand grenade and got the shell load out of it, and he played with it as a toy. But the toy is hard for me to put to bed. I can tell you right now it is. Yeah.
Do you ever wake up at night with nightmares or
Well, it's funny.
flashbacks?
Not so much. Actually, I had a little trouble at first feeling like at night in your bunk, feeling of the side of the ship, that wet, funny feeling that comes through on the steel. But really, I really haven't. That part of it is strange. Just being there. We went through, after we left Seattle, we were up in the Aleutians. We got in some real rough water. The waves were coming over the mast on the destroyer. The food is all over the floor. Everything is rolling. Everything is tied down. And one of the guys, a young guy, got caught by the wave, and he got swept back, and luckily he got hung on the railing on the back of the ship and didn't get drowned. But it really unnerved him. They had to put him to bed. And it was an amazing thing about that. But the only thing I remember as far as the dreams are concerned, I think about the war, yes, and I wonder, and everybody does, but that's the only way to look at it is that's the way it was. And that's the way I look at it.
Thank you so much.